Whenever I tell people that I work as a writer, one of the questions that I often get asked is how much do I write in a day? And usually when I give my answer, I get this kind of funny reaction from people when I tell them the number. I typically write anywhere between 8 to 12,000 words a day. It's all because the amount of words that I'm able to produce per day is directly linked to how much I can earn as well. But that's not the only thing that surprises people whenever I tell them how much I write. What surprises them even more is that I tell them I typically have a 4 or 5 hour work day. So all of the 8 to 12,000 words that I write within a day can typically be accomplished between 4 to 5 hours. The reason why I limit myself to just having a 5-hour workday at most is so I have more time to do other things, like I do my podcasts, I read my book, have the YouTube channel, I play games, or I work out, I exercise, and I take care of my health. And also, I have my social life as well. I'm doing so many things that I can't devote all of my time to writing. When it comes to the kind of writing work that I actually do, mostly I ghostwrite book. This can include fiction, non-fiction books, self-help books, motivational books, whatever. However, I also do writing for companies, so I maintain their blogs on their websites, I do online article writing, I do SEO, I do company profiles, deck presentations, and any kind of writing in general. And with my line of work, it's a very creative process that requires so much mental power every single time I sit down to write. And I feel like this isn't something that's exclusive to merely writing. I feel like any kind of discipline, whether it be graphic design, video editing, accounting, engineering, whatever, anything that requires substantial mental power will be able to benefit from everything that I'm going to be talking about today. Ultimately, I attribute two things to how I'm able to write so much in such a short amount of time, and those two things are focus and momentum. I'm ultimately able to focus and gain the momentum that I need to do all of the work that I do because of a concept that's called deep work. Deep work is a concept that was coined by an author named Cal Newport in a blog post that he published in 2012. The idea of deep work took off and it made rounds on the internet to the point that Cal Newport decided to publish an entire book surrounding deep work. Professional activity performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. These efforts create new value, improve your skill, and are hard to replicate. The idea of deep work is also colloquially known as getting into the zone or getting into a state of flow. We often see it in professional basketball, wherein a basketball player might make a few consecutive shots here and there, and then they start getting into that zone where they just zone out everything that's happening around them and they just keep on succeeding, repeating the process of success over and over and over again. The very idea of deep work allows us to block out all of the distractions that are so prevalent in today's world. One of the most beautiful things of the modern age is that we have access to so much information and so much knowledge with just a few taps of the finger. However, that is also one of the greatest pitfalls of our current generation. It's so easy to become distracted by just about anything these days that it makes it almost impossible to get into a state of deep work. In fact, in his book, Cal Newport says, the ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare at exactly the same time that it is becoming increasingly valuable in our economy. As a consequence, the few who are able to cultivate the skill and then make it the core of their working life will thrive. Why deep work works for me. Deep work offers a sense of clarity and focus in my mind whenever I work. It allows me to divert all of my energies and attention into this one singular task that I need to get done right away. This allows me to perform my task at an incredibly high level that I wouldn't be able to access if I were distracted or if my mind were cluttered. This kind of focus really allows me to push myself when it comes to how much I'm able to produce, especially when it comes to the skills that I know I'm good at. But more importantly, it allows me to get as much as I get done within a short amount of time. In the world of productivity, there's a concept that's called Parkinson's law. Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. Parkinson's law typically states that it's human behavior to take up as much time that's allotted to us in order to get something done. This is the reason why so many people tend to procrastinate when it comes to projects, studying for exams, and whatnot. We often really wait until the very last minute to get something done because our minds subconsciously trick us into thinking that that's really how much time that's required to get something done. By giving myself just 5 hours to work every day, I force my mind into thinking that I have to get as much as I can possibly get done within that short amount of time, and that forces me to go into that state of deep work that requires me to function at such a high level that I'm able to accomplish something that's seemingly really difficult. Getting into a state of deep work is a lot easier said than done, but there are a few techniques that you can try for yourself. The first thing that I like to practice whenever I try to get into deep work is to meditate. Sometimes when you're thinking about how much much you have to do within a day, it can create a sense of anxiety and nervousness within you that can make it difficult for you to get into a state of deep work. That's why I try to meditate or do a few breathing exercises just as a way of settling my mind and offering myself some clarity and perspective on what I need to get done. Another thing that I always try to do whenever I try to get to deep work is to just chuck my phone away. I think that the smartphone is the number one cause for a lot of people procrastinating and getting distracted these days. Do a little experiment, go to your phone's usage data and try to figure out how many hours you're spending on your phone each and every day. All of those hours that you're spending just mindlessly scrolling through your social media feeds could be spent doing something productive or doing something that could bring you joy or fulfillment in your life. One thing that I try to do every time I try to get into a state of deep work is I situate my phone away from myself, make sure that all of the vibrations and notifications are turned off, and then I will check my phone only during designated breaks and only for short periods of time. I know that there are important messages and notifications for you to attend to in order for you to be productive every day. This is why I suggest for you to have a dedicated time just to check those notifications and those messages and reply to whatever phone calls or messages that require your attention. But make sure it's just a small amount of time just so you don't get lost and distracted in the midst of your deep work. Another way to make sure that you get into a state of deep work is to prepare everything that you need to get your task done beforehand. So me personally, if I know that I'm about to write a book, let's say about the importance of sleep, then before I start writing, I'll prepare all of the resources that I need to get the job done. I'll have my outline ready on my computer. I'll have source articles and websites that I can use as references. All of these things should be prepared and opened even beforehand. That way, I don't have to disrupt my writing process when I actually start writing because everything will have been laid out for me beforehand. What this accomplishes is that it eliminates a barrier to entry for deep work. Let's say right now I'm filming this YouTube video and I would consider this going into a state of deep work. I would want to prepare everything beforehand, like making sure that my mic is set up and my camera is set up and making sure that my phone is off and that no one's going to bother me while I'm filming this video. This is so no disruptions will interrupt my entire process and take me out from the deep work that I'm already in. Another way for you to make sure that you're preparing yourself to get into a state of deep work is to properly schedule and properly prepare for your tasks and projects. We can talk more about task and project management in another video. If you're interested in seeing that, please do comment down below. Before you even start getting into a state of deep work, you need to have a game plan for what you're trying to accomplish, what output you're trying to achieve, and how you're going to achieve that output. That way, whenever you do get into a state of deep work, it's just a matter of execution. Have everything primed and ready to go. Another tip of making sure that you stay within deep work is you block out external noise. The ideal working environment is always going to be silence. I know a lot of people listen to music, myself included, whenever I work, such as lo-fi music or binaural beats, which are somewhat scientifically proven to help us focus. Silence is always going to be the best option. However, I know that depending on where you live, there may be certain distractions like dogs barking. There may be cars or motor vehicles that are causing noise outside your home, or maybe you have a neighbor that's doing renovations and the construction noises are too annoying. In that case, then I do encourage you to block out all of that external noise and focus on lo-fi music, or essentially just any kind of generic coffee house elevator music that doesn't have any words, that won't distract you. It essentially functions as white noise. These days, working from home is becoming increasingly common. However, for some of us, we can't avoid that there are going to be other people within the household, and having other people within the household means that there is a potential for disruption when you get into deep work. So I suggest, even before you get into deep work, try to brief the people within your life by saying, please do not disturb me within these hours because I will be devoting all of my focus and my energy towards working. I don't want any interruptions, and I hope you understand. For me personally, I try to practice this with my girlfriend. We actually try to schedule the times that we talk to each other within the day, just so we make sure that we don't disturb one another whenever we're working. It's also a great way of reinforcing boundaries between yourself and the people that are in your life. As much as possible, you want to separate your professional life from your personal life, even though those lines can get really blurred, especially when you're in a work from home situation. Another tip for achieving deep work is to practice the Pomodoro Technique. In my case, I've told you that I work around 4 to 5 hours a day at most. However, doing deep work for 5 hours straight is just not sustainable. Even for me, who's been practicing deep work for quite some time now. Your mind can only function at such a high level for so long. That's why it would be better to work in systematic spurts. Allow yourself some intervals for rest and breaks for you to just throttle down a little bit just to make sure that you don't burn out. That's why the Pomodoro Technique appeals so much for me. The way that the Pomodoro Technique works is that you're breaking down your work cycles into 30-minute intervals. 25 minutes of that should be spent on just pure working, and then you allow yourself 5 minutes to do whatever you want. You could rest, you could check your notifications, you could walk around, stretch, do whatever you want that's not related to work. However, you're limited to just your 5 minutes, and then after that, you go straight into another 25-minute set of pure work. I have personally found that the 25-5 format works best for me. However, there are other Pomodoro formats like working for 45 minutes straight with 15 minutes of rest, working for 50 minutes straight with 10 minutes of rest. It really is up to you. It all depends on what works best for your personal process. Essentially, the whole point of forcing yourself to go into these rest intervals is to make you feel less tempted to drift out of your state of deep work whenever you're actually working. A lot of the time when I'm in the middle of my 25 minutes of work, I'll feel tempted to check my notifications, and then I'll be like, no, it's okay. I have a 5-minute interval coming up that will allow me to do that. So it allows me to stay disciplined and focus on getting the job done and accomplishing the task. I know I said earlier that it's important for you to designate some kind of output that you want to achieve whenever you get into a state of deep work. And yes, that is important. However, the more important thing for you to do is to focus more on the process than the actual output. Like me personally, I don't get so bogged down by how many words I can achieve within an 1 hour span or a 2 hour span or a 3 hour span. I'm more focused on the systems that allow me to write as much as I do. So for example, with the Pomodoro Technique, I'll focus on making sure that for the 25 minutes that I'm working, I'm actually doing deep work and not shuffling between my phone and my computer. Or like when I'm about to get into deep work, I'll focus on the process of preparing myself, both mentally and ergonomically and practically. I'll make sure that all of my files are in place. I'll make sure that all of my resource materials are there. These are all a part of the processes that make up my productivity system and that allow me to get into a state of deep work and stay there for a prolonged period of time. And lastly, and most importantly, is you need to turn deep work into a routine. Treat it like a discipline or a skill that you can perfect and practice over time. If you're just starting out, it's normal for you to struggle to achieve deep work and sustain it for a prolonged period of time. Most people, when they try to start out, you can probably do deep work for around an hour or so. And that's fine. There's absolutely no problem with that. But there is a way for you to continuously build your capacity for deep work, and that's by continuously practicing it over and over again. Start with 1 to 2 hours of deep work every day, and you'll be amazed at how much work you could get done. Then slowly build your capacity for deep work. Move it on to 2.5 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Even try to do deep work for 5 hours. Build yourself up each and every day and push the limits of what your mind can accomplish. I want to end this video by emphasizing the fact that the point of getting into deep work isn't necessarily to turn yourself into some kind of soulless, mindless machine that just exists for work and productivity. The reason that I do deep work is so that I actually have the time to do all the things that humanize me and make me happy and give me fulfillment. That isn't to say that I don't enjoy writing. I do. I enjoy writing. But when I treat it like a job, it's not as fulfilling as being able to write for my podcast or to write scripts for my YouTube video or, to write a book that I want to publish for myself on the side. I have the time to do all of those things because I get all of the work stuff out of the way beforehand. And I'm only able to do as much as I do for work in a short amount of time because of deep work. If you're interested in exploring any of the concepts that we discussed today, I'll insert a few links in the description box below. Also, I'm thinking about doing a whole video tackling the idea of task and project management and how you can factor that into your scheduling system. Comment down below if you're interested in seeing that video come out soon. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you found its insights meaningful and if you feel like you were able to take away something from this that's of value to you. Thank you for listening to me. I hope to see you around soon.